Good evening and welcome to the November 18th meeting of the Goffstown Budget Committee. My name is Joe Alexander. We're getting started at 7:03. We're going to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So there are two members that were authorized by the chair earlier today to participate remotely. According to RSA 91A, we are allowed to meet, and two people can attend remotely as long as we have a physical quorum present. So I'm going to ask Fred Plett to do the roll call to make sure we have a physical quorum before we get started.
We do, but it'll make it clear for the record.
Perfect, thanks.
Joe Alexander, you're here. Vice Chair Fred Plett, I'm here. Stacy Bellimer.
Present.
Spencer Diaz.
Present.
Lauren Dukas.
Here.
Greg Flegel's by Zoom, right?
Yep, Greg Flegel's remote.
Bill Cordes.
Physically present.
Bill Cordes, okay. Dennis Lynch.
No, he's-
Richard Manzo, I think he's in Zoom. Is he on yet?
Yes, present.
Okay. Evelyn Redmond.
Present.
Melanie Renfro Hebert.
Present.
Skylar Sun.
Present.
Richard Fletcher.
Yeah.
Jared Talbot.
Present.
And Selectmen Board member Peter Georgantis is substituting for Mark Lemay, is that correct?
That'd be correct.
Yes, and vacant unassigned, are you here?
Okay, we have a vacant position. Thank you, Fred. So
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 of us present.
So we have 14 members present, 2 remote, so that's almost a full committee. So thank you for coming tonight. So the first thing on our agenda is the acceptance and correction of minutes. So everybody should have received from Catherine copies of the minutes from the October 28th, 2021 meeting and the November 4th, 2021 meeting. Are we okay to vote to approve those today?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Who
Okay, so
seconded?
a motion by Jared, second by Stacy. Danielle, just procedural, do we need separate motions for each minute? Okay. So your motion
Of the
was-
first ones.
Okay, so Jared Talbot made a motion to approve the October 28th meeting, seconded by Stacy Belmore. So we'll, Fred, can you call the roll?
Yes, I'll call you last.
Sure.
By protocol. Stacy Bellimer.
Yes.
Spencer Diaz.
Yes.
Lauren Dukas.
Yes.
Greg Flegel.
Yes.
Bill Cordes.
Yes.
Dennis Lynch is not here. Richard Manzo.
Yes.
I abstain. Oh, that one I was at. Yes. Judge Evelyn Redmond.
Yes.
Melanie Renfro Hebert.
Yes.
Skylar Sund.
Yes.
Richard Fletcher.
Yes.
Jared Talbot.
Yes.
Peter Georgantis.
Abstain, I wasn't.
Okay, that passed.
And I'm yes.
Okay, yes, I forgot to do that.
All right, and I'll entertain a motion for November 4th, 2021.
Make a motion to accept the November 4th meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Okay, so a motion by Jared Talbot for November 4th, seconded to approve, seconded by Stacy Belmore. Can you call the roll, Fred?
Yes.
Thank you.
Stacy Bellimer.
Yes.
Spencer Diaz.
Yes.
Lauren Dukas.
Yes.
Greg Flegel.
Yes.
Bill Cordes.
Yes.
Dennis Lynch, not here. Richard Manzo.
Yes.
I say yes. Evelyn Redmond.
Yes.
Melanie Renfro Hebert.
Yes.
Skylar Sun.
Yes.
Richard Fletcher.
Yes.
Jared Talbot.
Yes.
Peter Georgantis.
Abstain.
And the chairman.
Yes.
Okay, they pass.
Okay, and just for public, just for the public knowledge, we're doing roll calls for every vote because we have members that aren't present in person. So that's, according to RSA 91A, we have to do a roll call for every vote. All right, so next on our agenda are we're hopefully going to finish up most of the school deliberations today. So first thing on the school budget deliberation would be the food service budget. So we had a presentation last month. So I believe the budget's right in front of us now, so I'd be happy to, we can go over it line by line. Jared, do you want to just kind of recap the conversation we had before on it.
So the food service budget is a standalone budget that we use usually for our college students, I'm sorry. For our students, they would fund this through the purchase of sandwiches, lunches, things like that. So this is something that is provisioned through the school system, therefore it does come to the budget committee. Everything here is supposed to be self-sustaining and self-service. So as you'll see and as you look through for our actuals, if we start on page 1, you'll kind of see the differences that we have. We have salaries, we have foods, we have electricity. We do have other things that are listed there that are zeros, but they're always going to be listed there because of the codes that we use. But the intent, again, of the food service is something that is self-sustaining as a fund, and this is what we call the Fund 21.
Okay, great. So we're going to start just page 1. We have 5 pages go through. Fred?
I have to ask the $15,000 increase in non-capital software, line 23, item, account 651.
Yeah, that was a, as we discussed in the presentation initially, that's a new point of sale software. They have a current one that they're going to be replacing, and this is an allowance for that. You'll see on a subsequent page where you'll see a reduction, so that the net of those two amounts is what the food service director believes will be needed for that new point of sale software.
Thank you.
Great. Well, anything else this page? We'll head on to page 2.
So what you're seeing on page 2, if you recall in the location code, these are our different schools. So 000 is our kind of overarching administration. 101 is our Bartlett school, and then 102 is our Maple school. So you'll see the same things repeating over and over, but it's based on the schools that we actually have.
All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
I question the food line only because it's a $3,000 increase on 35 with inflation taking place. Is that enough?
We think it is. It's a best guess kind of scenario. Our food service individual has been very diligent and is thinking ahead. We're already doing pretty much acquisitions, or I shouldn't say acquisitions, we're doing procurements up until the January timeframe right now. So we're thinking ahead, trying to buy as much as we can because
Early.
of the supply chain issues and things like that as well.
And Fred, I wanted to just clarify a couple of things. One, when we did the initial presentation, it was Select Board Member George Jansen mentioned that on one of the slides, didn't make sense because it showed a decrease, but it really was an increase. That was an error because it should have included the USDA commodities, and that was omitted by accident. So that does also impact things. We do get food from the government that helps offset our costs. And then the other, we are part of a collaborative with like dozens of other school districts where we buy, collaboratively. And we're able to get, better pricing, but there is going to be an increase in food costs, and this is her best estimate.
Fine.
Okay. Evelyn?
If we could, I'd just like to clarify on that 15,000 change, the point of sale item. The only reduction I see is on line 37. Is that the one you were referring to, Jared?
No, I was referring, if you look at, on the second page, line number 28, dues and fees.
And just to be sure, we're working on the ones that say with actuals. You may have received 2 different spreadsheets.
I think most of them got
Oh,
the
they got the
actuals,
one?
yeah.
Okay.
So you should, Evelyn, on line 28, I don't know if you see, that says dues and fees. That was the reduction, 6195.
Third line down from the top.
Okay. Right. That was on a different line on the other one I was looking at. That's the one I was referring to.
All
So
set.
the 6195 is the credit against the 15,000.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Want to go to page 3? So what would you, one of my questions is food overall, what would we see the increase? like, in the entire budget?
Oh,
Just
boy,
saying.
I'd have to go back to my
I'm just curious
PowerPoint.
percentage-wise how it's going up, but it's,
I don't know the percentage, honestly.
And I'm going off of memory, so this could be wrong, but year over year, food costs usually go up 6 to 7%, depends on the ratios. I don't know what it was for what we projected for fiscal year '23.
okay.
I can try to figure it out. Joe, if you go on to another thing, I'll
Sure.
try to bring it up in Excel format, see if I can do some quick math for you.
Okay. So go ahead and open up, there's a couple more pages, open up the rest of the school, the food service budget, if anybody has any questions or comments about this budget, or wants to make a motion. Stacy?
I have questions about the food locker rental, which I think is on line 123.
Okay, go
Am I
ahead.
correct on that? That would be that food locker that, Scott, you presented to us?
Yeah.
So does that include, this is just the rental? Does this include the cost of the food that's gonna go in there?
It does not so what this is just an attempt to, this is a pretty large building. So rather than having all of the students go towards the cafeteria area, there would be more or less a food locker where food service would put it in, and then students can purchase, meals, almost like a kiosk, but in the other side of the building.
Is there an
But-
idea of how, sorry, follow-up
It's-
question. Any idea how much the food would cost to stock that?
Oh, it's the same, it would be the same cost as if, the cost of that meal would be the same as if it was in the cafeteria.
So there's no additional, these wouldn't be additional meals? These are
Correct.
just gonna take some meals out
You
of what we
got
already
it. So
know?
rather than serving that salad down there,
Yep.
the salad would be in this food locker where a student can go punch in a code and take the salad out. Almost like vending, in a way, like a vending machine.
Go ahead.
Was there, what made us believe there was a need for this?
For one, we're trying, with COVID, we're trying to keep the kids not all in the lunchroom, so lunch now is like all over the school. So with that, trying to make sure that we don't have all of, like 1,000 kids congregating in a confined space, we're trying to spread out where they can obtain food. We, at some point, we were also delivering food because of that. So this is a partial outgrowth of COVID, trying to have a kiosk or remote location to get the food.
Go ahead, Stacy.
Is there a fear that that could be wasted or lost cost food because people aren't using it? How would that be?
I would, it's always a fear, anytime you have any perishable vending situation, but I think what Megan, we already have done this already. We have a vending machine where we have perishable foods like yogurt parfaits, fresh fruit, and it's pretty much stocked based upon forecasted,
that day.
yeah. So, and they kind of know what their sales are, and they start slow, and then as they see increased demand, then they ramp up, and as Jared said, they kind of have a good working knowledge as to what it's going to need to be on a given day.
Last question, sorry.
Okay.
And this 3,600 would be an every year expense with this rental?
Right.
Thank
And
you.
what she's trying to do is, this is competitive, so she's trying to make it so that this is convenient for students, because this is bringing in, the revenue. It's a very unique the food service, because you're running your own business. She needs the revenue, so she has to be creative, not only in how she sells the food, but how it's marketed and all of the offerings. Kids can order their food on an app and pick it up, so there's a lot of things that are unique in this thing. It's not the good old days where you walk in a line and it's a scoop. It doesn't work like that anymore. Yeah.
Thank you.
Evelyn?
I have a question on the propane lines. It looks like at Maple Ave, you're zeroing that out. You've reduced it at Mountain View. So I thought the cost of propane was going up.
Yeah, we had asked Megan, who's our director, to look through the actuals and what her anticipated expenses are going to be. And, hers is a little bit, unique in that respect. I will say that if there are overages in that line, food service would have to absorb that within their budget.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have comment about food service budget? Okay, so we don't need a separate motion to approve this budget, right? It's
No,
part of
what
the total
will,
budget?
what will happen is it's a totality, so we'll be rolling this in with also our grants budget for total appropriations that I'd like to bring up in a few moments for warrant article number 2.
Okay. So yeah, let's do that, and then we'll move into CIP and the CRF.
Great. Before I can bring up the warrant article, kind of a little bit of old business, so I will ask everybody to look and pull out their regular budget that we went through the many weeks. So this is the regular school proposed budget. And if we turn to page 10, so specifically page 10, line 225, it's going to say management services. I know people are pulling it out.
Yeah.
What we have to do is, we have a change in our default. We've already approved this at the school board, and we now need to bring it here to approve as well. We're changing our default to be lower because they had a reevaluation in New Boston, which is one of our sending districts, and because they had a reevaluation and their home prices went up by 33%, it reduces the amount of money we have to give to the SAU and increases the amount of money they have to give to the SAU. So what I'd like to do, and I'd make a motion for line 225 to reduce the management services line from $1,937,692, which is currently listed there, to $1,858,257. So that is a change of $79,435 that we'll be reducing from our default budget as part of this process.
Okay, is there a second?
Sorry. I had a question.
Who
We just need a
seconded?
motion and second first, so Lauren Dukas seconded it.
Thank you.
Okay, Melanie, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to ask you to repeat the number.
Sure, so the number that you're seeing is 1,937,692. We're going to change that to 1,858,257, which is a reduction of 79435.
And what line is this? Where is this?
This is line 225 in our, on page 10, Fred.
I'm on page 10,
So reference line 225 on the left-hand side.
and it starts at 263. What am I?
You're on the wrong budget.
That's fine, just,
Okay, line 225.
thank you. Okay. Is there any discussion other than what Jared just brought up?
Thank you, New Boston.
Fred, do you mind calling a roll on that?
Not at all. Let me get myself combobulated. Good. Okay. Stacy Bellamar.
Can you clarify what we're,
This is the
voting
motion
about-
made by Jared Talbot,
Okay.
seconded by
Yes.
Lauren, on reducing a number from 1,927,605 to 1,858, something 257, and that was on page 10.
Okay, can you, I'm sorry, can you repeat your motion and then we'll do the vote just for the minute taker?
So
Please.
sure. I'll be happy to. So I'm reducing reference line 225, which is management services. I'm reducing it from 1,937,692, reducing it to 1,858,257. Again, that's 1,858,257.
Okay? We go ahead with the roll call. Stacy Bellamar,
yes.
Spencer Diaz,
Yes.
Lauren Dukas,
Yes.
Greg Flegel,
Abstain?
Bill Cordes,
Yes.
Dennis Lynch is not here, Richard Manzo.
Yes.
I vote yes. Evelyn Redmond,
Yes.
Melanie Renfro Hebert,
Yes.
Skylar Sund,
Yes.
Richard Fletcher,
Yes.
Jared Talbot,
Yes.
Peter Georgantis,
Abstain?
the chairman.
Yes,
It passes.
okay. Thank you, Jared. Yep, so let's go ahead, because we reviewed everything for Article 2. You have this paper right here. We're going to look at both of these warrant articles provided by the school district, going to appear on our ballot, so the votes that we make on here is going to appear on the ballot. So I'll go ahead and let Jared take it away on both of these warrant articles.
Great, so warrant article number 2, which is a general operation, this article states, shall the Goffstown School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth of the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote for the first session for the purposes set forth within, totaling $48,854,882. Again, that's 48,854,882. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $48,548,234. Again, that's 48,548,234, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Goffstown School District or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40-13, Section 10 and 16, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. This warrant article, the operating budget article, does not include appropriations in any of the warrant articles.
So the other two warrant articles we're going to discuss is this one, and I believe you're coming forward with a union contract.
Correct. There's this one, we'll talk about one in a little bit after we go through CIP, and the union contract, which we will not be able to go through until probably December.
Okay, great. So is there a second to that?
Who made the motion, Jared?
I made the motion.
Okay.
Second?
Seconded by Melanie. All right, discussion on the school side budget. Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the $48,854,882 includes the adjustment for line 225. You were just bringing us up to speed. That's the figure.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Good thing we voted yes then, huh? I'd have to change the numbers.
Yeah. Got Mr. Calculator over there.
All right,
Hold on, is there anybody else? All right, so this vote's going to appear on the ballot, so go ahead, call the roll.
Stacy Bellimer,
Yes.
Spencer Diaz,
Yes.
Lauren Dukas,
Yes.
Greg Flegel,
Yes.
Bill Cordis,
Yes.
Richard Manzo,
Yes.
Fred Platt votes yes, Evelyn Redmond,
Yes.
Melanie Renfro Hebert,
Yes.
Skylar Sun,
Yes.
Richard Fletcher,
Yes.
Jared Talbot,
Yes.
Peter Georgantis,
Yes.
and the chairman.
Yes,
I believe it's unanimous.
okay. The vote's unanimous. I believe it's 14.
14-0.
Okay, 14-0 is going to be on the ballot. All right,
Just as a note,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, that brings us to public session for the deliberative session,
Right.
where that number could change. And I believe then is when we vote to recommend or not
oh, okay,
recommend.
guess not, never mind. Well, I don't know. Can you please,
At the public hearing.
That brings you to public hearing.
Public hearing.
that brings us to
Right.
public hearing, okay,
And that's
thank
when
you.
would- After that, you would-
Is that going to be an amendment to the motion?
No, that was my interpretation of it. The chair interpreted differently from what I said.
I've only,
Okay, but your motion was to bring it forward to the public hearing.
Yes.
okay,
Just to make sure in the minutes, that's the way it reads.
Understood.
thank you. That was my mistake, I apologize. All right. Article 5, would you like to go ahead?
So what I'd like to do, Mr. Chair, if we can, review our CIP. So this is something that, as many of us know, the school board, as well as any kind of body here in Goffstown, we come up with our capital improvement plan, and then that goes to the planning committee during the summer to review. So the planning committee comes out and says, okay, we try to stagger not only what the school is doing, but what the town is doing to make sure that we're spending the appropriate amount of money, or at least planning on spending the appropriate amount of money for a certain time period, certain fiscal years. So what we're going to be reviewing is the school portion of our CIP. And do people have that?
I should, it was a part of the handouts, is the history.
I've got the history.
You got the history, but do we have the actual CIP numbers?
It's. I can hand them out.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
This is.
So they printed them but didn't hand them to you, so we'll go through them.
Somebody did not get one of these?
I didn't. Believe I did. So while Scott's handing this out, this is a 5-year planning period of some items, not all, but this is what we plan on working on within the school system and when we plan on doing it. So what I'd like the people to do, as Scott's rolling this around, we also have this one sheet that Scott provided. This is our history of our capital reserve fund. So this is something that was approved 3 fiscal years ago by our voters, and we've consistently deposited $200,000 into to be able to knock off some of our capital improvements we have within the school district. So I don't know if this is the town's.
Is the schools in here?
Yeah, let's say Scott. This
Page
is
6.
This is the
I have that.
It's, the school is, keep going. It's
school's on page
Page
6.
six.
It's on page
Thank
6,
you.
yeah.
I don't have,
Stacy to the rescue as always. So we're looking at is, we break it out by our schools. So we have Bartlett, we have Maple, we have Glen Lake, we have Mountain View. What I'd like to do, Mr. Chair, is if we can focus on really the fiscal year 2022, which is in column L, and 2023, which is in column M, focus on those 2 years for what our CIP is, because this is what we're using to derive how much money we're asking from our voters for our funding of our CRF. So as you go through, you see, okay, Bartlett, line 199, the first one, you see heating controls there. We're basically scheduling to spend $80,000 on heating controls within our Bartlett schools so that we can update those improvements. Now, what you're going to see in column G is how we're funding this. So not all of our CIP, especially with our ESSER grants, is going to be funded by our local taxpayers. What we've tried to list out here is what's going to be grant funded through the federal ESSER funds that we get versus what we're planning on saying, okay, this is raised by appropriations or being funded by our CRF that we're asking money for. So if you look through, you'll see, okay, wait a minute. On line 201, we have bathroom renovations in Bartlett. You'll see in column G, it says CRF. So even though we're not talking about 2024 right now, we're planning on spending $160,000 from our CRF, if money's available, to renovate our bathrooms within Bartlett. So I don't know if we just want to focus on 2023, because really that's the immediate need that we have for this.
22 and 23. yeah.
2022 and 2023. You'll see tax appropriation. So you see roof special replacement section A, roof replacement B, roof replacement C. We're looking at that being funded through tax appropriations in that fiscal year. If you see the boiler replacement for Bartlett, that's a CRF item. Again, that's 2027. We're not going to focus on that right now because it's not in the immediate future. So if I'm looking down or continuing to look down, and if anybody wants to look at anything specifically, you know, we see, okay, wait a minute. I see something, bathroom renovations on line 212, bathroom renovations in Maple. We're looking at this being funded through the CRF for 2023 in the amount of $150,000. So our CRF is something that we can carry year over year, so we don't want to put in $600,000 one year and $200,000 another year. We're trying to level set that fund so that we can try to knock these out when they arrive. And again, for those of you that haven't gone through CIP, this has all been approved by the planning committee. So this isn't just a school board looking at this. This goes to a separate planning committee. They kind of change things around and bless them, and then give it to the budget committee for us to review as well.
Thank you, Jared. Does anybody have any questions about CIP for the school side of the budget?
I have to take a moment to go through it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Does any of the 2.5% that they hold back apply to any of this stuff that's being done here?
Currently, the 2.5% contingency fund can only be used for emergencies that are declared by not only the budget committee,
No.
but also by the DOE. However, that law has changed. So going forward, that could only be used for, correct term?
Well, it would be unanticipated expenses. However, right now, what is on the books, what the voters approved, is a 2.5% contingency fund with emergency expenditures, as Jared just stated, with approval by the Budget Committee and the Department of Ed, or a reduction of taxes. There is legislation that was passed by the House and Senate in 2020, which has increased it to 5, but that has not been approved by the voters, and that has less. You don't have to have an emergency, it's just unanticipated expenses, but that has not been, that's That's not what's on the book. So your question was the 2.5, and it's only for emergencies and/or tax reduction.
And how have you been using it?
We used
We've
it
used
for the.
it, we used it
tiles.
once that I'm aware of, and that's for the tiles, the asbestos tiles that we had in the high school. And as people recall, even though that going forward, we won't have to come to this board, we do expect to have that as a courtesy, of course, to not only have the public hearing, public session, but also bring it to this board as well, so that we're well aware of it.
So how much is in that fund that stands?
We can only hold that as part of 2.5% of our operating budget, and if we do not use it that year, it must go back to the taxpayers.
And then where your budget increases in this budget here, you go 2.5% of that.
It's 2.5% for every operating budget.
It's not, correction, it's not of your budget, it's 2.5% of your local assessment plus the statewide property tax, which is called SWEPT. So it's the local assessment and that's swept together, and then you multiply that times, 0.025, and that's what you can retain. It is also, you're able to retain it, but on June 30th, it gets liquidated. That's why the school board every year has to decide what do you want to keep in that, set aside. And so every single year, that vote has to be taken. Other than that, it automatically gets liquidated.
Okay, good. Fred?
Well, how much is in that fund?
Over 660,000. I'd have to give you the exact number,
That's
but
fine,
it's.
just wanted to generally.
Fred?
I have a couple of questions on specifics. I'm only focusing on 2023, because that's what's before us for this coming year. Page 2, line 225, door frame replacement, it says move to 2022 by CIP, but I see numbers in 2022 and 2023.
Yeah, it's a 2-year process.
Okay, so starting this year for 2 years.
Right, and I want to clarify that, for those of you who don't know, that the town is on a calendar/fiscal year where the school is on a July 1 through
Yes.
June. So when we do CIP, when we're looking at 2022, we're looking at 2022, 2023, and 2023 is actually 2023, 2024. So it's a little bit of confusion there, but that's why Jared was very intentional when he said he was looking at 2022 and 2023, because we got overlapping years.
Understood. The other question I have is down under Mountain View Middle School, line 237, in-building transformer replacement. You know the electrical engineer, the guy working for utilities his whole life, is going to ask this question. It says it's at end of life, or at life expectancy, but they could last a long time. Has there been any testing to show, in fact, that it is deteriorating and does need to be replaced?
According to our facilities director, he has these things maintained, and he was told by the people that do the inspections that plan on replacement of your in-building transformer.
Okay.
Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I lost it. Line 253 and 254, the theater expansion and infrastructure. The $500,000 says it's going to be coming from a grant. Is that an ESSER grant? Because the line underneath it says that the project is eligible for the ESSER and CRF, but the infrastructure is going to be $300,000 that's coming out of a CRF?
Yeah, I can explain. Yes, the theater expansion would qualify as an ESSER eligible expense because you are adding to the overall capacity, you're adding storage, freeing up space within a building for students, et cetera. The existing theater hasn't been updated in 30 years, so that so we already have some estimates on replacing the seats and trying to do some different things with acoustics. That is not ESSER eligible. That's simply just an update. There's no reason. It's not COVID related. It's also not eligible even for that stimulating the economy reason. So so that's why you see that separately. We are looking at quotes for these things, and if it's prohibited, the board has to make decisions. It's like, is this worth it? But we had to put what the thoughts were at that particular time that we did the CIP. So that may be something we do, but if the cost is prohibitive, it may not be something that the board does.
Thank you.
Anybody else in CIP? Okay.
Great. So just to reaffirm something that we've done with the board, you have the single sheet that looks at what expenditures have we spent out of the CRF. So these are items that we actually have gone through CIP in prior years. In working with the Budget Committee, when we first established this, the Budget Committee said, hey, you know, we think that you should start picking off specific items within our CIP. So the Budget Committee said, let's pick off the Mountain View gym lockers, partition walls, and bleachers. And so that's what we did. So we basically started taking action on some of those CIP items because the board wanted to have the trust, the Budget Committee wanted the trust of the school board to make sure that we're spending the money in the right way. So what you're seeing here is all of our account activity that's we've had with our CRF. And with that, we are putting warrant article number 5 out there, which is to fund our CRF for, by the voters in March, of the amount of $200,000. So we're looking to add an additional $200,000 into the CRF fund so that we can continue really knocking out some of these CIP items that we've identified and gone through the planning committee with.
And this would be the 4th year that we have done this.
So,
Okay.
any other questions?
Go ahead, Peter.
So if I understand what you passed out here, you still have $255,000 in that fund.
Yep.
And you want to add another $200,000. Are there specific items that you've targeted?
Yeah, so, as we mentioned, you know, before, in the upcoming year, Peter, we have a playground equipment at Maple Avenue that's being discussed. We've already replaced, one of our scoreboards that was over 20 years old. Now it's the softball one that's given us grief. And we had targeted or earmarked money, $100,000 for LED lighting retrofits because there's good energy incentive grants through Eversource. Furthermore, we are talking about a bathroom renovation project in 2023 and that theater infrastructure that Lauren was talking about. So we'll be able to do 1 or 2 of those projects over the next couple of years with this deposit.
And one of the things, if I may, Mr. Chair, to kind of articulate on is we don't want to try to lock ourselves into specific items. And the reason for that is there might be new grant opportunities that come up that expire. For instance, lighting in our theater. There was a grant that we were able to use from the energy, the lighting.
Oh, it was in the gym.
Oh, in the
But,
gym.
yeah, so, yeah, we got a 75% grant and with rebates to replace the lighting at Mountain View Gym, the Hilltop, and here, and it was, overall, you saw we spent, I think, what, $18,000 for like $75,000 worth of.
So we're consistently looking for new revenue opportunities through grants, and that really sometimes reprioritizes what it is that we're trying to actually accomplish for that time period. So we don't have anything to say, okay, this is exactly what we want to do for this summer. What we try to do is say, okay, this is our plan. Are there any new grant opportunities? If yes, maybe we need to shift that a little bit.
I would say, though, that in terms of some of the ones that we've been looking at, it'd be the playground and I think the theater infrastructure, because we've already started to get estimates on replacing the seating in the theater. So I think those would probably be the ones that we would be looking at first, as the first couple of priorities.
Fred?
I would ask to at least look at putting heat pumps in some of the new modules that were strictly resistance heat. May or may not be worth it, but at least do the study to determine.
I'm going to ask our business administrator to bring that up and add that to our general budget, next budget cycle. See if we can get in there.
I was thinking grants, efficiency grants.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a pretty good assistant superintendent that is always looking for educational grants or infrastructure grants. With the changing over that we're having with our assistant superintendent, that is something that we're going to be really instructing more people to start looking at, so that we're always looking for new grant opportunities.
It's a discounted cash flow. How long would it take to pay, and is it worth it?
Oh, I agree. I'm all about ROI.
Yeah.
Evelyn?
So can you clarify what the amount that the taxpayers are expected to cover in these CIP items? Is it on page 9 for 22 and 23 at $352,000 and then $698,000?
Yeah, so I believe and Danielle is here, so she can help, correct me if I'm, or Derek, but when we fill out the forms, we do this individually, and we put on there, what is the expense, and then what is the expected revenue source, and if that revenue source is a grant, then there wouldn't be any impact, or if it was fully funded by a grant. So at that bottom part, I think it would be the net to, I don't have one in front of me, the net to the potential taxpayer. Keeping in mind that what we're looking at is a planning tool, not necessarily a budget tool. And it's as I think Jared started this off, 10, 15 minutes ago by saying, this is, this goes through planning to try to level out expenditures so that everybody is on the same page, all the town departments, the school department. And but when we plug something in, we are cognizant of is this a grant or is this going to be funded by taxpayers? So, and that's something that the CIP folks, in planning, that's what they look at as well.
Right, but what we're seeing is 352,000 for '22, but more than, double that for '23.
Yeah, so as much as you try to level things out, you're only really seeing the school side, and there's going to be a town side to this as well. So I wasn't part of the CIP process, and for all I know, there was a balancing act done in looking at both.
But I think, if I may, Mr. Chair, I think the question is why aren't we increasing the infuse of funds to 300,000 over, to kind of look at those 2 years? We wanted to stay at 200,000 to infuse the money into this fund because we are aware that taxes are tough on people, and we do not want to raise taxes as much as we physically need to, or necessitates to. So we tried to stay at the $200,000 CRF funding that we're going to be asking for in a few moments, instead of trying to increase it to $350,000 to cover what you're seeing there as a delta.
All right,
Yep.
follow up. But as I understand this is a planning tool, but as you go forward, I know you can't answer for the CIP committee, but at least on the school side, it's not being fairly level as far as what is being put
We
into
agree.
CIP.
Yeah.
It's the school's policy that the school also has to make sacrifices, just like everybody in our community. So, we could ask for 350,000 this year. As you see next year in column M, we could be asking for close to 700,000. Then we could be asking for close to 880,000 to try to cover that gap. But we don't want our tax rates to fluctuate too much. We recognize that as a school board.
Thank you.
Well, and Jared, just a little bit of feedback. I don't have a crystal ball, but I have a feeling the next few years might be tough on some people financially. So my ask is that the school board really look into what exactly is a need and what is a want. So I'm looking theater expansion, things like that. Are those things that need to be done, or are those things that we can push back? So just a little bit of feedback from myself, not speaking for the committee, but for myself personally.
Absolutely, and that's something that we recognize. And I think from a school board perspective that I'm currently representing, we're always trying to use grant money instead of tax money. So with the ESSER funds that are coming in, they do expire. So we're trying to take a lot of that, those capital improvement projects and complete them before the money expires, because we have to submit paperwork, submit engineering drawings, we actually have to do the project, and then we have to pay all the bills before the money actually expires out of the account. So we are front-loading a lot of our things that are able to be done as part of our ESSER grants that we get.
Anybody else? Okay, I'll look for a motion.
So with that, I will make a motion to move what we're calling Article 5 to the public hearing. And this is the Facilities Capital Reserve Fund, to see if the Goffstown School District will vote to raise and appropriate $200,000 for deposit into the existing Facilities Capital Reserve Fund, and to authorize the use of that amount from the June 30th, 2022 unassigned fund balance available on July 1st, 2022. This appropriation is in addition to warrant article number 2, the operating budget article. This was approved by the school board, or recommended by the school board,
by a vote of 7-1.
Mr. Chair, I second, just to be on the record as doing something.
Okay. You call the roll, please.
Yes. Stacy Bellimer,
Yes.
Spencer Diaz,
Yes.
Lauren Dukas,
Yes.
Greg Flegel,
Yes.
Bill Cordis,
Yes.
Richard Manzo. Richard Manzo.
Yes.
Fred Platt votes yes. Evelyn Redmond.
Yes.
Melanie Renfrew Hebert.
Yes.
Skylar Sund.
Yes.
Richard Fletcher.
Yes.
Jared Talbot.
Yes.
Peter Georgantis.
Yes.
And the chair.
No.
Okay? 13-1.
Okay, so motion passes.
With that, that concludes all of our school information that we have until the union contract comes up, which I'll coordinate with the chair and our administrative assistants. But I thank everybody for their due diligence and time on this.
Okay. All right, so next on the agenda, we're a little bit behind schedule from what I saw, what the goal was set. Just gonna begin town deliberations. So I want to start with a townwide overview and update of the select board budget. So Danielle and Derek, do you mind taking a seat at the table?
Thank you, Derek Horn, Town Administrator. The Select Board finished up with their portion of the budget on November 8th. It was very similar to the budget that was presented in joint session to both the Select Board and the Budget Committee. What I'd like to do is just highlight some of the differences. For everybody, I think, Lauren, you don't have one yet. You should have two documents in front of you. The first one, a big packet, is the entire budget. The first first 2 pages are summary by division, and then our special articles. And then immediately after that, it gets into our expenditures. It's numbered 1 through 26. And then you also have an 11 by 17, which provides you detail on CIP. Those are really the two handouts that we have for you tonight. The changes between what was presented in joint session, the first is on page 14 of 26 of the larger packet. This was a reduction in gravel and stone in DPW that was discussed at the meeting, at the joint meeting. This is on, again, page 14 of 26, line 60060. Gravel and stone was reduced by $40,000. Additionally, in CIP, on page 22, you will see a reduction of $1,060,000. That is highlighted again on page 22 of the overall budget, but it's also on your detail list here. The Select Board removed the PD radio renovation project. That was a $500,000 project, and will be utilizing local fiscal recovery funds from our ARPA. Bids were submitted earlier this week, so I'm sure the police chief and fire chief will be bringing the recommendation to the board here shortly on that. The board chose to remove the 10-year flyover and GIS in the amount of $100,000 and move that to special article funded from unassigned fund balance. And then there were 3 projects in DPW that were removed and put to special article from unassigned fund balance. The first was the air curtain burners for brush. That was originally in your budget for a project of $135,000. There will be a slight adjustment to that based on current pricing to $170,000. Then the transfer station truck scale, $75,000. And then the highway garage ventilation and fire suppression for $250,000. Those projects were removed from CIP by the board and will be special articles to be funded from unassigned fund balance. The only other changes in your budget were in the sewer fund. Again, the sewer fund does not impact property taxes, but just to highlight those, on page 25 of 26 of the big packet, there were some corrections to New Hampshire retirement system numbers. There was a slight increase there due to a miscalculation. And then on page 26, there was a reduction of $428,987 by the Sewer Commission in their CIP line. So sewer actually has been reduced by $424,290. So that's a highlight of the changes that were made by the Select Board, and be happy to answer any questions or however the chair would like to proceed.
Are there any questions for Derek? Evelyn?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to table the balance of the town discussion to another night, since we just received these new reports tonight.
I'm gonna second.
Okay. So there's a motion to table discussion on town side budget deliberations. Do you want to speak to that, other than what you just said?
Well, there's CIP we haven't seen at all tonight for the town side at all. And we haven't had a chance to really review any of the increases or changes to the town budget.
Okay. Is anybody else discussion?
I'd like to discuss
Oh,
that.
yep. Go ahead, Fred.
Mr. Chairman, it's one thing to table any vote to take, but I don't see why we couldn't go through and ask questions.
That was,
Yeah, so there's technically, there's the agenda, so the chair makes the agenda. I mean, the motion would be not to table discussion, the motion would be to adjourn until the next meeting.
Then
I would say if you have to make,
I will amend my motion to adjourn tonight to our next meeting to deliberate the town budget.
I'll still second.
all right, so a motion and a second to adjourn. Lauren?
I would say that we already had the benefit of the presentation of the town information. We had our binders, we saw the chair's agenda ahead of time. So these changes are pretty well documented, and if we have questions and we need to go through them, we have the people here to ask. I don't know what's going to be gained by adjourning to look at the things, when if we have questions, we have the people here to
Peter?
ask.
Okay. Peter?
I'm the new guy here, because I haven't been at the meeting, but we did participate. Of course, I participated when we had the joint meetings, and all this information that was given to you then, I'm not sure, Evelyn, what new information besides the adjustments we made on the CIP, which are pretty simple and self-explanatory, would make any difference.
Well, my reasoning are, for one, partly because we were a joint meeting, I for myself, even though I did ask a couple questions, didn't feel that we had adequate time to go through the budgets and review them, as compared to changes or, proposed pay increases, et cetera. So it's my feeling that we need a little more time to actually listen to the presentations and, actually review them.
Are you suggesting we do the whole presentation again by department, or you just want to review the paperwork that's in front of you?
I'd like the time to review the paperwork, and then if I have questions, I'd like to be able to address the department heads.
Because when we had, Mr. Chairman, when we had the joint meeting, we expressly said that anybody that had any questions could reach out to the department heads. So, I mean, you're dragging your meetings out with, but if everyone's not comfortable, if the board's not comfortable with it, I can understand it, but, geez, I thought we did, per your request, the budget committee's request, we did the joint meetings with the department heads and opened it up for questions. I don't know how much longer you want to continue this on.
Right.
So I guess it's the board's call whether they really need to go through it again.
All right. Any other discussion? Can you call a vote on that?
Yes, I shall. The motion on the floor is to adjourn. A motion by Evelyn Redmond, second by Stacy Bellimer. Stacy Bellimer,
Yes.
Spencer Diaz,
Yes.
Lauren Dukas,
No.
Greg Flegel,
No.
Bill Cordis,
No.
Richard Manzo,
No.
Fred Plett votes no. Evelyn Redmond,
Yes.
Melanie Renfro Hebert,
No.
Skylar Sund,
No.
Richard Fletcher,
No.
Jared Talbot,
No.
Peter Georgantis,
No.
and so that's,
Chair.
Chair, yeah, no?
Yep.
So, thank you. I'm following a legislative procedure, and the problem is that calling on the chair last, I forget.
Easy to forget.
Yeah, no, it's just going back to the top, not the individual.
Okay, so I want to first,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 noes, 2 yeses.
okay. So what?
Sorry.
3 yeses.
Sorry, correction, oh, thank you. Correction was 3 yeses.
3, yes.
Okay. Derek, do you have where the Parks and Rec budget is? I want to start with that, just so Rick can have the rest of his night.
Yeah, that is on, again, the large packet. It is at page 17 of 26.
Rick's ready.
And there were no changes in that budget from what was presented back in October.
Perfect. Okay, so we're going to start page 17. We're going to finish out Parks and Rec first. It's a page and a half. Does anybody have any questions or comments about Parks and Rec? Go ahead, please.
Page in one line. So, Mr. Chair, your procedure's gonna be that we go by departments and then ask any questions? Is that what-
I'm gonna go by department.
Okay. You're not looking for another presentation, just if
Nope,
somebody has a
nope,
question?
just if there's questions for
Right.
the director. Okay. All right, we're gonna release him for the rest of the night, so any questions, we'll
I'll
call
stick-
him, follow
I'll
up.
stick around.
Okay. Less stress now. Yes. Okay, so the next one is town admin. Go ahead and get Derek. So that starts, excuse me, Derek, that starts page 1, right?
That's, yeah.
Page 1.
I'm sorry, what page is that on the big?
It's page 1 of 26, so after you get past the summary pages, yep.
Any page 1? Page 2? How much are members of the select board paid? Just curious.
Not nearly enough.
$100 a year?
This is my third meeting this week.
So more than 100 a year?
Yes.
Okay, great, just checking.
That's on line 3, isn't it?
That's right.
41250.
Yep.
On page 1.
Okay. Page 3? So for the record, Derek, I'm just on the IT. Is this IT for the entire town? It's all looped into one?
Yes, this is for the entire town, so this includes our software costs as well as our dark fiber, our fiber optics for telephone. So yes, this is IT for the entire. The only IT that will not appear in here, there are a few IT costs in with EMS, because that's a separate fund, and we try and keep those distinct.
Right.
And under communications, they had a small telecom line that still remains for $1. We've slowly transitioned that out of police comm and brought that over to IT.
Okay. Jared?
I do apologize, as when the joint sessions between the select board and the budget committee were during school board meetings, so I did not, not able to look at the presentations. I'm looking at the comp and comm hardware. It looks like you have a significant increase over the prior years. Could you just articulate that, or if it's in the packet, just tell me to look at the packet and I will.
It is not in the packet. We've seen a significant cost increase on laptops, PCs. We're also seeing a very large increase in our server batteries, the batteries that allow those servers to shut themselves down in case we were to have any power outage. Currently, we have about 100 desktops throughout the town that we run on a 4-year cycle, so we're replacing 25 every year. About 60 laptops, again, 4-year cycle. We're just really seeing a significant cost increase, as well as a delay to get those units in, as well as phones, tablets, all the devices that we're using. So that's based on what we anticipate for increases in those costs.
Great, thank you.
Evelyn?
Yes, I'd like some information about the increase also in line 48,455, the software line.
So also software, we are expecting a significant increase in individual software packages. 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago in 2020, we had a project for Microsoft Office. We made the decision with the select board to go to Office 365, which is a subscription-based per user, rather than to buy the license outright. That was driving force behind that was COVID and the impact that that had on our operations. We're anticipating that that alone could be approximately a 20% increase on Office 365 alone, which is the backbone of our communication. And then there are a handful of others that we're seeing modest increase of 5% or less, but then every once in a while you have one that will jump by 10%. So we're not adding any new software. We've actually gotten rid of a few software packages, and our IT office is working to use the Office 365 SharePoint to try and replace some processes that we have to reduce our overall software, but the cost is going up.
Thank you.
Any other questions? On page 3, tax collection, any questions? Going to 4. The revaluation of property is going down, right? I'm joking. The property values are going down.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Pardon?
Question.
Yes.
Thank you. Looking at your employee development, line 44300, of course, being from the school board, looking that this is being cut somewhat significantly, in my opinion. Any particular reason why we cut that line for development of our employees?
We had one employee that was in a specific degree program, and he completed that program this spring, so we're no longer have that cost to incur. Under the personnel plan, the town pays 50% of, and then there's a clawback provision, but he has completed that program and no longer need to fund it.
Permission to follow?
Yeah.
So if there's a individual or individuals that wanted to start getting their bachelor's or master's or something, is this going to be enough money to cover them to, or how many employees would this cover for the money that we have listed?
So we typically, I don't recall what the exact wording is in our personnel plan. I know in our CBAs, most of them set a July 1 deadline that you need to go to your department head and request that professional development to enter in and receive that tuition reimbursement, so that we can build it into the budget. And then if somebody were to come after that or to come next year, We would have to then go to the select board to see if there were available funds elsewhere, or if we were going to under-expend employee development.
Great, thank you.
All right, page 5. Go ahead, Fred.
Yes, the wage increase on regular wages is another employee. I can't remember, quite frankly, the presentation. So planning and zoning and economic development is another employee anticipated?
No, if you actually turn back to page 4 of 26, under reval of property, in my proposal, there is a 25-hour part-time employee position currently in the 2021 budget. I'm proposing to have that go to a full-time employee, a benefited 35-hour-a-week benefited. So the wages are in reval, so that was the one new, I guess, change. So it's not an additional employee, it's 10 additional hours, and then the benefits that go along with that.
Okay, and under line 41-100, I see a jump from 168,014 to 207,994.
The 168 is the year-to-date. The actual budget is 199.
Sorry,
so.
sorry.
Anything else here? Okay, we'll move on. My question specifically, I know that the governor has launched a grants for helping to pay for heat this winter. I know it's not for this budget, but I'm just wondering specifically how much money is in our budget to help with home heating, or like, I believe it's in the town hall area that's helps with when people come on tough times.
Yeah, so if you look at page 6, the bottom of page 6 under human services, the very last line is direct assistance for housing. That is our funding that goes to anybody that comes in for general assistance. You will see a reduction there from 30,000 down to 20,000 because we anticipated there are some additional programs being offered through the state of New Hampshire that we are helping people find those programs first before we kick in and help out.
Okay. Have you seen a high volume, or have there been,
Okay. Danielle works with our general assistants, and more inquiries. We've seen more inquiries, but not an increase in the actual applications. Again, we do refer them to those programs at the state or other area agencies that might be able to help out, and sometimes they're able to find the assistance they need from those avenues.
okay, great. Great. Anything else on the town hall? Evelyn?
Yeah, can you give us some information on the increase in the benefits line under insurance?
Yes, so we did see an overall decrease in our health insurance costs and our dental costs this year. What this reflects is we have 2 new proposed full-time positions. We have one in Parks and Rec, as well as the assessing one that I spoke about a moment ago. This is also reflecting those safer firefighters that were approved at town meeting, those 4 there, as well as the 4 firefighters that were approved by the board. So those are, the actual rates have gone down, we just have budgeted more people using those benefits.
Great. Town hall budget, any more questions? Okay, thank you, Derek.
Is that reflected on the revenue side, the 4 firefighters?
It is, yes. So those 4 firefighters are reflected on the revenue side at 100% reimbursement.
For now.
For now, yeah.
For now. All right. We'll move on to fire and EMS. So Brian, please join us, please. All right. Do you know what page this starts on, fire and EMS?
Page 11.
All right, great. So let's direct the committee to page 11. Any questions this page? Jerry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You'll hear a general theme from me, employee development. It looks like a lot has not been used in the past couple of years. What are we doing to try to increase employee development?
Yep, so it has been used the last few years. This year, it has not, because we actually had an employee going for his bachelor's degree. However, was able to get grant funding, so we didn't use any this year. And we do have 2 scheduled for this coming year, as well as an individual going to paramedic school, so.
Great, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely encourage it. And I finished my degree last year.
Great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I'm looking specifically, Brian, on the part-time wage line. So we see, that not being used.
Correct.
Up, and that's because we added the 8 new firefighters this year, right?
No, the reason why that wasn't being used is the part-time employees through the COVID outbreak just weren't working. And that's why we had to make the shift to those full-time positions. So they shifted the funds from the part-time into that.
Mr. Chair,
Yep,
just
go ahead.
just to point out the same thing, look at a couple lines down below where your overtime pay was way up because we had to cover those shifts because we didn't have the part-time people to do that.
Okay.
So, I mean, it looks like we haven't been using it, but
We've been
spent
using
it
it
someplace
elsewhere.
else.
Do you see, and just to follow up, do you see in the next few years seeing a further reduction in the part-time line as we get the full-time firefighters up to speed and covering the shifts that?
So I think we'll always have some part-time people to help, one, with our overtime costs, right? If we can have a part-time person that's qualified, working with our full-time people. So I don't think they'll ever go away, but it'll definitely reduce.
Okay. Anybody else's page? Move on. Okay, anything else here? Move on again. Oh, that was just fire. There it was. Okay, so EMS.
EMS is on page 23.
Okay. All right, so the EMS is just this page, I believe. So does anybody have any questions or comments on EMS? I'll give you a minute to get to the page and look at it.
Yes.
Go ahead, Fred.
Just a shift, apparently, from part-time to full-time. You see the part-time dropping significantly, and an increase in full-time. So it's a shift in how you're running the EMS?
Yeah, the same question the chairman just asked, same answer. We're just shifting our model.
Okay. Anything else in fire side, EMS side? Go ahead, Evelyn.
All right, because you're now shifting labor to the full-time firefighter EMTs, are you changing the contribution that you make towards the full-time firefighters' wages?
I think I understand your question. You're talking about the percentage
Well,
of
the
funds?
fact that the the EMS is self-funding,
Yep,
but you've reduced
we reduced the
your
part-time.
wages.
Yep, reduced the part-time and then shifted the split from our full-time firefighters
Right, so,
between the
so
fire
is
budget
the-
and the EMS budget.
so is the EMS service contributing to the wages for the full-time firefighters?
Absolutely.
At what rate?
10%. 90% is operations and 10% is EMS, based on what the EMS fund's revenue is currently able to carry.
Is that going to be adjusted when you see the actuals for next year?
The actual revenues?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's self-funding, and the monies there should be covering anyone who's working as an EMT or there is working EMS services.
Sure, but all employees are dual certified, so that,
I understand.
yeah. So as the fund revenue increases.
Well, I'm of the understanding that a majority of your calls are EMS calls.
Yes,
Is that correct?
that is correct.
So it would be my opinion that the EMS service should pay more of the full firefighters' wages. Just an
So
opinion.
that fund is based on revenues received from ambulance billing. Ambulance
understand
billing
that.
is based on payer mix. In this community, we have a large percentage of our payer mix is based on Medicare and Medicaid, which the government says, this is the rate we are going to pay. The town, and we have a fee schedule, and I'm just gonna throw a number out. If an average ambulance transports $1,000, the government, Medicare and Medicaid says you get paid $300. So you can charge whatever you want, you're only gonna get this. This community's payer mix is primarily like 80-something % Medicare and Medicaid.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Fred?
Please tell me why every time there's a ambulance going to a scene, there's a fire truck with it?
Usually for additional manpower that's needed. That's the reason.
It just struck me as a overuse of vehicles, but it's.
Sure, if you want to come ride with us, and you want to help assist carry patients, yeah.
All of us should do
And
ride-alongs.
I'll put it out there for anyone, welcome to come up on.
Can I play with the lights?
Fred's kind of looking here.
Because a lot of them codes are heart attacks, difficulty breathing.
Correct, all
That's
the
why the truck
chronic
goes.
Western diseases,
That's
yeah.
why the truck
Yeah,
goes.
diabetics,
Yeah.
cardiovascular disease, strokes.
So the engine goes with it. There's some calls that don't go with it.
Correct.
What was the reason for the engine going with it?
If a guy's having a heart attack,
Uh-huh,
the guy's having difficulty breathing,
yes,
he said diabetic,
yes.
you know,
But, I mean, that's what an ambulance is for, all of that.
but it takes more than the people on the ambulance when they have that.
If you'd like to come, and I'm serious, if you want to come and see the operation, you can definitely come and explain it, and if you want to ride along, you're more than welcome to.
Don't show Fred the way you power your building, because I tell you what to do.
I see you a lot in Medville. I'll just leave it there, where I live.
Me too.
Yeah.
A big one is auto accidents.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, anything else, fire, EMS? Anything for Brian? Go ahead, Lauren.
I'm sorry, I'm still new to this
That's okay.
process. I just wanted to clarify that a lot of the changes that Derek went through with us, what we're seeing right now hasn't changed from your presentation, so you're still down 5% on the fire department. And,
With the offsetting revenue coming back, yes.
yeah, so those figures are still what you had given us, so, okay. Thank you again for my notes. Thank you.
So fire, CIP for fire and EMS, I'm looking only at facility repairs, is that correct? Yeah, facility repairs, so, okay, Mass Road Station.
Yeah, just to remind the board that the Mass Road Station, we're in the process of an RFP process. When you back the apparatus in and out, the actual whole floor moves and buckles and needs to get repaired structurally. It needs repairing. And I'm going through with the CIP committee. We actually decided to move some of those funds in so we can get that repair done. It has to be repaired. We've had a structural engineer out there twice now. Now we're working on the RFP.
Okay. All right. Anything else? That was it for the agenda today. Hold on one second. Okay, never mind. That was it for the agenda today. Does anybody have anything else to bring up tonight?
Motion to adjourn.
After that, 1 second. Danielle, I'm going to ask that you hand out the sewer budget ahead of time so that everybody has a chance to review that.
It's actually in that large packet that. you
Oh, it
received
is, so
tonight.
he sent me a duplicate.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. So
the
everybody
sewer
have a
budget's
chance to
in
review
there.
that.
It starts on, at the very end, it's pages, I think, 24 to 26.
Okay. All right, so our next meeting is going to be Tuesday night. Fred made a motion to adjourn.
Before we can, if I may, Mr. Chair, for our next meeting, what should we concentrate on to review as our agenda?
Hold on I got to pull this up. Hold on.
Mr. Chair, I have it in front of you. Do you want me to
Yep,
read through it?
yep.
So for Tuesday, the 23rd, currently on the agenda after the normal business for minutes, is continued deliberations for the library, the sewer commission, Department of Public Works, and the police department.
Great. Perfect. Motion to adjourn by Fred, second by Stacy. I'm sorry, Evelyn. So we don't need a roll call for that. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? All right, we're all good. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.